Hi, and welcome to today's webinar, Better Information, Better Advice, where we're going to be looking at a modern workflow for this tax season. My name is Matt Wilkinson. I'm the head of go-to-marketing for Law Cyborg. Joining me are James Rose from Content Snare. Hello, James.
Hello, hey Matt, good to be here.
Thank you. And Oscar from Law Cyborg. How you doing?
Pretty excellent, pretty excellent.
Nice. Um, just do a little bit of housekeeping and we can test out the chat functionality. So we want this to be a nice interactive webinar. You should see a chat panel in the top. Let us know where you're dialing in from. I'm in the South Island of New Zealand in a place called Wanaka. Nice and cold.
I forgot you're in Wanaka. I'm very jealous.
Yeah. Maybe not today. It's been raining and about 5 degrees, so not so much. And where are you, James?
I am in Brisbane. It looks like the chat is working. Okay, cool.
It is.
Brisbane, Australia.
Very
It's
nice.
nice and sunny today, which is very good.
Lovely. And can see quite a few people from Auckland. That's where you are. Hey, Oscar.
Indeed, a little bit grey here today, but nothing too bad. So not a whole lot to complain about.
Nice. Well, welcome everybody. We're looking forward to showing you this workflow. The session will be recorded. I'm sure someone's going to ask. So we're going to record the session and send that to you afterwards with any links and things like that. So don't worry if you miss anything, we will send that out. If you're having any technical issues, just use the chat. I will endeavor to answer you while these guys give you the workflow. And please do ask questions. There's a Q&A panel as well. I don't really mind if they come in through the chat or the Q&A. And I will ask James and Oscar those questions at the end, or maybe in the middle as we
I'm happy to get interrupted for sure.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so if you move on to the agenda of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be looking at a proper workflow. So we're going to look at a really complex client situation, and then what that entails. So we're going to this is the kind of thing I think you're going to be facing. We've just had a financial year here in New Zealand. You're about to hit it in Australia. And so you're going to be chasing clients for documents. You're going to have these complex situations coming in. You've got all that to look forward to. So we're going to show you a genuine situation like that. One that's really going to require a deep dive, and one that before you can advise, you're going to need some documents. You have to request those documents and you need to know which ones. And in the past, there's guesswork, there's back and forth, there's incomplete files, and that can delay the advice. And so, I think as we all know, a lot of the delay with clients isn't the bit that you do, isn't the bit that we do. It's actually getting that information, knowing what to ask for, and then getting it back for clients. So what Oscar and James are going to show you today is how to really reduce that by a modern workflow using cutting edge tools. So I'm going to tame that complex client situation by asking the right questions using Law Cyborg. So we're going to take it, put it into Law Cyborg, basically do research. That's going to give us the right questions to ask the client and what information we need from them. And then rather than going the old way of just send an email, hope they send it back, and we all know how that goes, we're going to use Content Snare, which is it's a much more frictionless way to do that, both for the client and for you, because it's going to chase them for you. And then we're going to feed that information that we get back from Content Snare into Law Cyborg, and then turn that into a really great piece of advice that's going to be grounded in the law with full citations and really specific to the client's situation. Let me just do some quick introductions. I told you who I was. We've got James here from Content Snare. So he's the founder and CEO. And Content Snare it's the easy way to get info from clients, right? Without the back and forth. So they help hundreds of accounting firms and some other types of firms as well from all over the world stop chasing clients for info. And I was actually a client of Content Snare, my last business, so I can attest to how good a tool it is. And I think you'll enjoy seeing how it works. So welcome, James. Thanks for coming up. No problem. And Oscar is an AI research specialist from Law Cyborg. He's one of our earliest hires, a subject matter expert on professional services AI. And he's really looking forward to showing you this workflow to reduce tax season friction. So thanks for jumping on, Oscar.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Very good. And very quickly about Law Cyborg before we get into the workflow itself. So what we're about is meticulous tax research for every accountant. We were built by a founder who our founder was like tired of the old way of doing tax research. And today we're serving over 1,500 firms, for Big Four through to boutique firms in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK as well. So you'll soon see it in action. And later on, if you want to book a demo, we will have links to do that. But let's get right into the session today. I'm going to hand over to Oscar, and we're going to look at this first part of taming client complexity.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to start sharing my screen, and what we're going to run through is an example of using multiple different tools to get time saved across the whole research process. So not just actually getting the answer to a specific situation, but facilitating getting the information needed to get that answer. Because as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced yourselves, part of the difficulty with actually getting time saved with AI tools is actually just figuring out which ones you should be using when, at which points in your work to actually get that time saved, rather than having to spend a whole lot of time setting things up and tweaking things and fiddling with things without actually getting much in return. So what I'm going to do now is start sharing my screen in Law Cyborg itself. So okay, so all I've done here is I've opened up Law Cyborg, and what we're asking about is just a very, very, very broad question. And the reason why this is actually something that doesn't really work with traditional tools is because a tool like Law Cyborg doesn't rely on keywords to understand how to answer a question like the one we're typing in here. So even if I do not know where to start for a particular issue, so let's say that a client's come to me and they've said they've sold their business, they've made a capital gain, they're asking about eligibility for small business CGT concessions. If I was using a traditional tool where I have to already know the specific keywords that are required for me to even start that research process of figuring out what I need and why, with Law Cyborg, I can ask very, very broad questions like, what do I need? So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm putting through this question, basically asking Law Cyborg, what specific information do I need from my client to ensure that I can get a really good answer for them? And the nice thing is that no matter what question I ask, even if I'm asking Law Cyborg to draft an email, it can't start writing anything until it reads through all of the relevant legal material first. So what we can see here before it actually finishes writing an answer is everything it's reading through. And what we'll see is it will be reading through all of the material required to understand the specific legal tests for working out whether or not a particular sale is eligible for small business CGT concessions. And what that means is, to give me an answer to this, it'll already know everything that Law Cyborg will need from me to give me a high quality answer. So I often talk to people that are worrying quite a lot about all of the specific words that go into a prompt that they're putting through AI tools, and they talk about this idea of garbage in, garbage out. But what I try and encourage people to do is lean on the tools themselves more to help you prompt. So this is a good example where we can tell Law Cyborg, hey, I really want to know what I need from my client, and Law Cyborg can organize everything in a really clear way for us to make that process of getting all that information easier before the actual research is even being conducted with all of that required information. So what we can see here is the answer that we're getting back from Law Cyborg. Now, whenever I see any of these citations in the answer, if I hover over it, it's just telling me what that source is. And if I click on it, it will take me to the specific part of that source that it was using to give us that part of the answer. Now, the reason why that's nice for something like this is because I can very quickly and easily go through all of those references and understand exactly why any of this material that Law Cyborg is flagging for me is needed from my client. And what we're going to do now is, now that we have all of this information from Law Cyborg, so it's saying, here is all of the material that's required from your client and why, this is the point at which usually there would be a pretty high friction process of then going to my client, playing email tennis, doing some back and forth, hoping they're not using their own chat GPT or something because they've decided that they're now a specialist as well now. So actually maybe they don't need to give me this and they'll give me this instead. And instead, we're going to look at an example of how you can make that process a lot easier by using something like Content Snare, which essentially just makes it a lot easier to organize all of the requests for the specific material from that client and makes it easier for the client to actually provide it back to us. So the reason why this is actually quite a useful workflow to look at is because I'm sure, as a lot of you will have seen, it is pretty hard to figure out which tools you should be stringing together when in order to save time. So hopefully what we're going to see is a concrete example, because what we will do now is I'm soon going to pass over to James, who's going to show us what it would look like to, once we've got an answer like this from Law Cyborg, actually fetch all of this information that Law Cyborg has flagged for us through Content Snare, and then we'll take that information, put it back into Law Cyborg, and get Law Cyborg to actually answer this research issue for us using all of that information. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass over to James, who's going to show us what fetching all of that information that was flagged for us by Law Cyborg could look like.
Indeed. Thanks, Doctor. Yeah, so I mean, thanks for the intros too. I feel like Matt, you did a great job. I mean, Content Snare is essentially a way to get clients to send you information. You've all been here before, where you send 10 questions over to a client, they reply with 7 answers. 3 of them aren't even the right thing. So you go back and forth trying to get the right info from people. And that's exactly the problem we solve, whether that's for client onboarding or for queries or whatever. And this is just a perfect example. It's like, we need some more information to complete this job from the client. So just really quick version here. Like each one of these is a request that we've currently got it. So like I was saying, you know, some of these might be for client onboarding or whatever. A request is just a bunch of questions that we have asked one of our clients. So the beauty here, the new way of doing things is using this new request with AI. So this allows you to just paste sort of unstructured questions into Content Snare and be able to build a list of things we need from the client. So we might call this, I don't know, let's just go law cyborg. But you know, we'd say this is the business sale, just like that. We paste in directly what's come from law cyborg in this case. So I've just got a sort of one I've previously prepared, but yeah, just copy in all the information that Law Cyborg has requested, and it's going to go ahead and use AI to determine what kind of question each one is, because some of the things we've got here, oh, of course that didn't work because I'm going live here. Try that again. I've got an even better way to show you guys. Maybe I pasted in the wrong thing. Hopefully I did not. There we go. Yeah, it's creating all the questions. Being AI, it does take a little bit of time. Right. So we've got all the questions that have come over from Law Cyborg. You didn't have to go ahead, like normally in Content Snare, or like anytime you're asking questions in a tool like this, you would have to go and create every single one of these questions one at a time, right? Like, I want the sale contract. Here's some instructions on what we're looking for. We need your cost-based records. Here's some instructions on, what that actually needs to include. But all of this was just generated through that interaction between Law Cyborg and Content Snare. So, but the magic of Content Snare is when we actually send this off to a client, it's how easy it is to use. So if I'm going to send this to myself just as a test, normally you would have automated reminders that go out, because this is the thing, right? Like, you can send a list of questions to a client, but the chances of them actually replying straight away is basically 0. So we will automatically chase them up on your behalf. But if I go ahead and send this off now, and I'm going to open my email. Hopefully this comes in nice and fast. Yep, it's been sent. All right, so we've got this information required for the business sale document. Oh no, that's from earlier in the day, I think. Oh no, that's new. Cool. Yeah, so this is what the client's going to receive. We're looking at the client's end of things now. So they can open up this request. And they get like a nice, really simple UI, distraction free. Like, here's what we need from you. This is just a welcome page, which you can customize. In this case, we might not have even used a welcome page. We could have just jumped straight into the questions. So they can now start uploading things. I've just dragged and dropped from my computer there, or they can click and choose a file. If they don't know where to find something, they can ask you a question here, for example. Like, usually that would just mean we haven't sort of given them enough instructions, but they can go ahead and ask you a question. We've got tables to fill out. And again, remember, we didn't create any of this. It was all just done automatically for us based on what came out of Law Cyborg. It just knew that we had to create a table, and then they can fill out date of births and things. Let's do another, what have we got? Financial records here. So I'll just throw another file in here. Let's just pretend at this point the client's filled out a lot of the information we need. I'm not going to bore you with answering all these questions, but you can kind of see how it works. Back over on your side of things in Content Snare now, let's have a look at that request, what's come in so far. We can have a look and go, okay, yep, this is the document that we need. They've done the right thing. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to approve that. The big thing I wanted to show you here is often you end up getting the wrong information from clients, because clients just are clients and they won't get everything correct. And so this is one of our more popular features, is this ability to reject and just go, hey, like, that's the wrong thing, whatever, this is what we really need, blah, 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 blah. And they'll get prompted to come in and give you a new version of that file. So again, need your imagination here. Pretend they've submitted a whole bunch of stuff. You've gone, maybe rejected some things, they fixed it. At this point, we would export this request. So we can get a PDF of all their answers, and it will also dump out I can't show you. Basically, a zip file that was a PDF of all their answers, plus all the files that they uploaded in here, which in a second, I'll pass back over to Oscar to show you something. But I do just want to show you something pretty incredible that is possible these days with AI. Now, if you have, if you're using like Claude or Copilot or something like that, I just want to show you, let me share my Claude code with you. So I'm connected to Claude here. I say, can you create a request for me in Content Snare with the following information? Send it to james@contentsnare.com. Okay. Now I'm just going to copy over the previous information I've got from Law Cyborg. So it's just got a list of questions that we need. This is going to take a second, hopefully not too long. I should have let this run in the background while we were doing the other thing before. But so if you've heard of MCP before, I'm connected to the Content Snare MCP from my Claude, which you should be able to connect to from Copilot and OpenAI as well. But it is just looking into the Content Snare API right now, and going to go ahead and build that request for me and optionally send it to the client. I would generally recommend creating it as a draft and then checking it over before you send it. But it's just found me in Content Snare. So, all right, I've got 3 pages of information to create. Now I guess Claude is just having a slow day, but
I just jump in there. So you mentioned that could work in co-work. So you're a techie guy, right? You're using Claude Code here, which might be certainly above my pay grade, above the pay grade of some of the people on here. I can see people are using it, but like, how would that be used in a more sort of like mainstream scenario?
So, I honestly feel like this is a limiting belief people have. Claude Cowork is just Claude Code, but worse, made for, I don't know, like, it depends. Like, if you get scared by, You know, it's actually quite funny. I've spoken to people about this before, and I'm like, sometimes I wonder if just having things in dark mode scares people more. And I've changed it over to light mode, and they're like, oh yeah, this thing seems way better. But look, it is exactly the same in Claude Cowork. You can get Content Snare to talk to the Content Snare MCP. And it should work in Copilot as well, though I haven't tested it. MCP is generally the same in all the tools, though. But you can see it's gone ahead and created this request. So if I click that, it's going to open. Oh, I don't have Content Snare shared. Where do we go here? Come on,
So
Teams.
MCP is
Stop.
just to tell everybody.
Sorry,
Like
yeah, a bit of
APIs. It's okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's just a way that AI knows how to talk to apps. It's like a different version of an API. It's like API plus some instructions on how AI should use the API. So it's just saying like, here's how to connect and here's how to talk to it. But so I just clicked that link in Claude and it's popped over into Content Snare with that like full thing created, right? And like, it's just incredible that you can do these things now. Like, and you saw I dictated most of that. I spoke to Claude and said, go and create this thing in Content Snare. And here we are. And now I'm ready to basically hit that publish button and send that off to the client if I'm happy with everything. So pretty amazing.
Fantastic. And I think that's a bit of a glimpse of, well, the present, but also the future of how apps work, right? Is that you might not ever go into the app itself, the UI. You know, people might never log in, well, you know, in a traditional way into Content Snare, right?
That's right. And especially I don't know much about Law Cyborg's API here, but like there are so few apps that I'm actually logging into now. You know, I say like go and get the info out of this product and it's connected. So it goes and pulls it and like now go and create a request in Content Snare and it just does it, right? Like, or maybe there's some pre-processing I'll do in the middle. So with Claude, you know, I've done this before where I've said, you know, go and get this thing. I want to change the format of this a bit. Delete those 3 questions. We don't need them. And I'm literally saying this into Claude, like with my mouth, like not typing this in. And then it changes the questions, and I say, okay, I'm happy with that. Go push it down in the Content Snare, and bang, you've got a request to send off. I mean, I love some of this new world. Some of it's rubbish, like it's not great at everything, but some things it's amazing at, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for showing us that. What we're going to do
Yeah.
now is, so
We've got the
got that
documents back.
information.
Yeah. Back
Yeah.
into Law Cyborg.
And that's Chase, just to be really clear, is you've sent that request to clients and it will chase them for you, right? No more kind of, you know, harassing emails and phone calls. It's going to do that for you.
Yeah. For a lot of people, it's like let Content Snare, you know, onto your client, let it chase them, and then you don't really think about it until it comes back, instead of being like in 3 weeks' time going, oh man, they never got back to that email. I remember to chase them again. It's just like let Content Snare do the chasing. Eventually, you might get a notification if you've got it set up. Be like, they've answered everything. Go in there. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Reject it. And then once you've got everything in your like nice little wrapped up package, you hit export like I did before, and that's ready to go back into Law Cyborg.
Great. Okay, cool. Right. So we've got it all back, like you just explained. What happens next, Oscar?
Yeah, so what I've done here is I've just opened up Law Cyborg again, and just in the interest of time, so we're not waiting on it to write an answer, all I did was I asked this question after uploading to Law Cyborg the information that came back from Content Snare. So I've just combined it into one document here, just so that it's a bit easier to see everything. But basically, this is just all the information that Content Snare sort of fetched back from the client after we put through that request, so that Law Cyborg has all of that information that it flagged for us that it would need to write us a really good answer. Now, when we're talking about things like MCPs or APIs, basically, you just need to think of these as the method by which AI can, like James said, talk to other apps out there, because I'm sure that all of you have run into the friction that comes with needing to communicate all of the context required to whatever AI tool that you're using so that it really understands the specific information needed for the situation you're asking about. And whether that's having to go into your Outlook and sort of manually try and find the email that you're thinking of and then copy pasting it, going back into the tool, putting it in the question box. Basically, connectors make it easier for the tool you're using to go and get that information without you having to manually carry everything back and forth between the different tools. So in more Cyborg's case, what this looks like is using something like, Content Snare to make it easier to get all that information. But then when I upload that information as part of my question, what we're able to see is that Law Cyborg can actually use both the sources it already has access to, which is only relevant tax law, and the information that we've uploaded to give us a really good answer, because it's using both the specific context included in the uploaded information that we've provided and all of the underlying legal documents it needs to actually apply to that specific set of information. So what we're seeing here is whenever we see one of these citations, just like I showed before, that's Law Cyborg pointing us at the sources it's used. However, we also see that there are some citations that have a paperclip icon. And the reason they have a paperclip icon is because these citations are actually citing back to the information that we have uploaded for Law Cyborg after it flagged for us everything that it would need. So if I click on any of these citations, what we'll see here is that it will actually open up the specific part of that uploaded information that it was using to give us that part of the answer. And for a workflow like this, where I'm wanting to corral all of these random facts together that are required for me to actually research this issue in detail, and then I also want to be able to really easily have everything in one spot where I can tie everything back to my specific client's facts and the specific legal material that is required to be applied to those facts, this makes that really, really nice and easy, because I can jump between both very quickly, the specific information that was needed and that the information had to be run through the different legal tests and the actual legal tests that were applied. And so what that means is if I'm looking at an answer, I do not have to just trust Law Cyborg and hope for the best. I can very easily understand exactly why I'm seeing the full answer that I'm seeing here. And what I asked in my question is I also asked for just a draft back to the email to the client, because one of the really nice things about using AI research tools, and look, I'll be frank, AI is being crammed into basically everything at this point. I'm sick of hearing about it, and I work at an AI company. But the reason why it's actually really nice for research is that you don't just have to get back an answer that you then have to spend a whole lot of extra time turning into an actual client deliverable. You can also make that process easier all within the same tool by just asking that as part of your question. So you can be very specific about the format with which you want an answer to be provided. So we'll also, if I scroll down here, be able to see the email that Law Cyborg drafted back. And because I gave it all of that useful information from Content Snare, it also knows all of the specifics already that it would need to actually make this draft a really, really good start, because it already has all of the context in terms of the names of the people involved, the dates, the numbers, the specifics about their business. And I'll be honest, I've never gotten AI to draft me an email and gone, great, that sounds exactly like what I'd send, off it goes. But in terms of just cutting down on the amount of time that you have to spend looking at an empty page on your Outlook going, okay, what is the first word I type in this email? And instead you're able to spend that time going, okay, well, I'll shift this and I'll move this around and I'll change this here. It's just far, far, far easier and far less friction to get started in this manner, where you can, in one tool, you can do both your research and you can then do the drafting side of things, that even if you are needing to then dig into things in more detail and ask Law Cyborg to explain why it gave you this part of this answer and walk you through some more examples. It's nice to be able to have all of that context in one place, because one of the really annoying parts of using AI tools is having to go between a whole different bunch of them just to grab context from one and pull it into the other. So being able to work just within the research tool that you're using in that way can be really, really convenient. And also something else that I'll mention here is this question that I put through, I don't have to worry too much about every little word in that question. Law Cyborg already understands everything that it would need to know exactly what an email should look like back to this client in terms of all of the legally technical material. And so if I really wanted to be specific, I'd more be wanting to focus on, here is how I like to see emails written, or here's an example of an email I've written before. But there's a whole lot I don't have to explain to Law Cyborg that I might have to explain to a general AI tool like ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot when it comes to understanding exactly what I need it to pay attention to on the legally technical side. So what we've seen here is just a look at what using these tools together that actually make it just faster and easier to do the work that you need to do without just outsourcing all the research or outsourcing all of the information gathering from the client. What we're seeing with both Law Cyborg and Content Snare is tools that make it easier to collate all of that into one place and make it easier to surface exactly the things required to actually get your work done without having to spend as much time doing the drudgery of moving things from place to place and going to chase people up. So hopefully this was a useful look at what using multiple tools in sort of sequence can look like, because it is a bit of a strange world when it comes to AI, because there's no playbook yet on, oh, if you want to use AI in your practice, here's the exact stack that you use, here are all the tools that you use, and here's who should have access to them, and here is when you should use them. So there is a little bit of experimentation involved and sort of figuring these things out. None of this is solved, but hopefully you've seen an example of how you can start to maybe experiment a little bit yourselves with saving some time across more of your workflow than just one isolated part of just asking your research question or gathering the information from the client. And yeah, hopefully you'll be able to experiment a little bit yourselves as well.
Thank you, Oscar. So I've got two questions, one for the audience. Maybe just keep Law Cyborg up for a second, because one of them's for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Question for the audience. Did you find that workflow useful? Do you think that's a workflow that you could use this tax season that we're either in or is coming up? I'd really love to know that. Tell me in the comments. One of the questions was, we've got a lot of New Zealanders on the call today. Can we do a New Zealand example? So what I thought was, could we maybe put some extra information in here? We're gonna have to make this up on the fly a little bit. Is someone in New Zealand or something like that? Because one of the things that we do is the tool can be across different jurisdictions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'll quickly do is I will just change to the New Zealand tool, and I will basically in the same chat say, how might this situation be treated differently in a New Zealand context? And we can see what that looks like.
Perfect. And as you're doing that, and maybe I'm giving you too much cognitive load here, but you'll be the best place to answer this one, Oscar. If there are law changes coming up, are they, and this is in New Zealand, but it would apply to Australia as well. So say we've got some tax changes coming up in May that are going to come into play later this year. Is that flagged up in the tool?
Yeah, so basically, one of the most important things our engineers are doing on any given day is actually just making sure all the right data is in there. They're not spending most of their time working on making the AI smarter or more Skynet or anything like that. Most of it is actually not as sexy. It's just making sure that our tool has all of those up-to-date documents as the law changes. And the difficulty there is that we keep all sorts of out-of-date law in our platform, not because we can't be bothered cleaning it up, but because it's really important that we have access to also law that is now out of date, in case people are now asking questions about how things have changed over time. So the way that this is treated in Law Cyborg is that all of the underlying documents categories that we have in our database, which I'll show in a second, are updated weekly. So what I've done here is I've been in the same chat when I was asking these questions in the Australian tax context, and then all I did was I changed this option to be New Zealand tax. And what that changes is, if I click on the side panel, I click library, then what we'll see is, let's change back to New Zealand tax. All it changes is the specific database that Law Cyborg is using to answer the questions that we're asking. So when I change it to the New Zealand version, it's now only accessing New Zealand law. And all of the documents in all of these categories are updated weekly. So say that there's a new High Court case that comes out to do with tax, that should be in Law Cyborg's database, processed and ready to go within a week. And this is pretty important because it's also one of the reasons why it's actually pretty hard to try and sort of create your own system that uses legal documents to answer questions, because just getting all of the right data in there is one of the main challenges that a company like Law Cyborg faces to actually having a tool that actually helps people save time. Because to be frank, even if our AI was the smartest it possibly could be, and it was the smartest AI on the planet, it wouldn't matter if it didn't have access to all of the legal material it needs to understand how to answer the questions that we're asking. So that's something that is a very, very big part of what our engineers are doing, is just making sure all the right data is in there and constantly updated. And what we can see here is that now, when I've asked this question, of course, because I just asked it as a follow-up in that same conversation, I don't have to re-explain any of this material to Law Cyborg, because it's seeing, before it answers, everything that's come beforehand in this conversation. So it's able to pivot to the New Zealand context and walk me through how the situation might be treated differently. So we can see here, it's actually saying, well, there's a lack of a comprehensive capital gains tax regime in the first instance. So what we're going to see is we're actually probably going to see some value judgments from Law Cyborg about, okay, well, there's not actually a clear comparison that can be made on the basis that there isn't a similar regime, but I think we're still going to see a useful answer. And this is one of the really nice things, is that Law Cyborg isn't just finding legal documents that answer our exact question. It's able to exercise its own ability to reason over everything that it's reading to go, okay, but what would be actually useful to answer this specific question that we have asked? So it doesn't matter that there's no equivalent regime in New Zealand. Law Cyborg is still going to be able to give me a useful answer by attending to perhaps things that might be somewhat similar structurally in terms of how the New Zealand tax system works. So what we're seeing here is that it's going down through, here's how the tax treatment of things is treated in New Zealand a bit differently. It's pointing out some of the specific rules that are applied to a New Zealand context, but not an Australian one. And then it's given us a nice little table at the bottom. So if I wanted Law Cyborg to, say, draft an email again saying, can you please now outline the differences, I can, of course, just continue asking those follow-up questions. And that is something that takes a little bit of getting used to be frank, because we are so used to doing one and done keyword searches, where whether I'm on the ATO or the IRD's website and I'm trying to find the legal documents that answer the question that I've got, or I'm just on a traditional or legacy tool, because they work in keywords, you're never able to ask those follow-up questions. Each question is a one and done set of keywords. You either find what you need or you don't. And if you don't, you're back to the drawing board. Whereas with Law Cyborg, even if I ask a question and I get an answer that doesn't quite give me what I need, I can tell Law Cyborg that. I can say, well, I get that this is a bit relevant, but I don't understand how this factors in, and I can continue iterating as I get answers back. So one general piece of advice I have, and this applies to basically any conversational AI tool, is worry a little bit less about the specifics of the question that you're asking and worry more about just asking more questions. Be willing to iterate and not get the perfect answer first try, because you'll get there a lot quicker if you're just developing that line of inquiry, which is something we're not really used to because this is such a new way of working, but it's one that is a lot more intuitive once you get used to it.
Thanks, Oscar. Maybe if we switch back to the slides, I've got a few more questions. We've got a few more minutes before the end. One of the questions is on security. I've had a couple of questions on that. So to maintain client confidentiality as required with TASA and privacy law. So I guess, James, do you want to talk to that first, of what you do in ContentSnare?
Yeah, sure. I mean, ContentSnare is ISO 27001 certified. It's like the gold standard of information security. Outside of the US, for some reason, they use SOC. I think you guys have SOC as well, don't you? Yeah, it's I mean,
yeah.
For all intents and purposes, they both kind of tick the same boxes, although we're going to get SOC 2 pretty soon as well. That kind of says you've been third-party verified or audited that you're doing all the things you say you're doing from a security perspective. But yeah, ContentSnare is very big on, it's like one of our main reasons, like our main, what do you call it? Like marketing things, it's an incredibly secure product. We go way beyond what normal people, but what a lot of other apps will do. We use per tenant encryption. So every single product, every single company is encrypted differently in our database. As far as the AI side of things, which right now the main AI thing in ContentSnare is that automated request builder that I showed you. That is on an agreement with OpenAI that none of that gets used for training. However, you probably would have seen there that there was no actual personal information anyway that goes to that AI, right? It wasn't like a specific, oh, dear client whose name is, something proprietary limited with the ABN. Like none of that. There was none of that in the question names, right? It was like fairly general, like we need these documents from you. So if you are concerned that AI is being used in that scenario, then you would just make sure the question names don't have any client info in them, and then there's like literally nothing to worry about.
Thank you. Conscious of time, so if anybody would like a personal demo of Law Cyborg, you can scan there. We'll send an email afterwards. I will put the link in the chat as well. Just bear with me so you can book in and speak to the man himself, Oscar, and he will give you a personal test drive. So I'll put the link in the chat there.
Including if you already are a user as well. So if you just want some training and you want to understand how to better use Law Cyborg or anything like that, you're also welcome to book a session in with me directly.
Very good. And James, if people want to find out more about ContentSnare, what's the best thing they can do?
Yeah, contentsnare.com is probably the best entry point. I put that in the chat. There you can either start a trial. If you don't want to talk to anyone, you don't have to. And you could just start a free 14-day trial and play around with it, or you could click on the demo link and you can book a demo with Tom, who is our very annoying British business development manager.
I'll just very quickly answer that final question about
yes.
Content differences between Law Cyborg and traditional content providers. So broadly, the contents of Law Cyborg's database is relatively similar to a legacy tool like CCH, with one key and important exception, which is that CCH, of course, has got a lot of custom commentary that they've spent a lot of time, effort, and energy and money paying subject matter experts to write. The reason why that doesn't make Law Cyborg a non-starter is because Law Cyborg is basically designed to be formulating its own custom commentary for the specific questions that you're asking by performing that same process of looking at all of the underlying legal material and then synthesizing how that actually applies to the specific issue that you're looking at, which has the upside of being really, really, really tailored. Because for a traditional platform where they've got commentary, it has to strike a balance of being specific enough that it actually gives some helpful insight into how to treat particular issues, but general enough that it's actually useful for enough users asking a broad range of questions. Law Cyborg doesn't have to follow that same trade-off because it's designed to formulate it for your specific question as you ask it. It's not looking to pre-canned answers. It's making them by reading everything required beforehand. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like in practice, I just encourage you to book a demo and you can see what it looks like.
Yeah, and as a sales guy, it would be remiss of me not to say that one of the other differences between us and legacy vendors would be price. We come in at a lower price point, and we don't do lock-ins. But yeah, let's wrap up there. We've gone slightly over time, but thanks for everyone for joining. Hope you found that a really useful session. James, thanks for giving up your time and especially showing us your Claude stuff. That's really cool. People should check that out if they're not already. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. We'll wrap up there. We'll send the recording. We'll send some links to ContentSnare and Law Cyborg. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and have a good tax season.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.